Hi, it's Jared from Strongroots Farm. Today we're going to talk about automatic watering systems. And so I have one that I'm going to show you. I'm going to take you through. I actually have a second one that I'm going to install later so I can show you how to install them, what it's going to look like. We're going to show you one in use, some ones that we don't like this yellow one, and the one that we have that we're about ready to install. Stick around. We're going to go all the way through what is the best cattle automatic watering system. It's all coming up today. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us as we go through and we talk about automatic watering today. I don't want to delay. I just want to show you what I think is the best one, and then we'll go back and talk about why, those factors. They'll show you the ones that I don't like, what I don't like about them, and then we'll talk about installation, how it can help your farm. But if you're just here to say, okay, what does he think the best one is? Let's look at that now. Ground is frozen currently. 16 degrees. We do have a major storm coming. Now, we got a little bit of snow. This is a dusting, nothing major here for Ohio, but we have 12 to 15 inches coming tomorrow. And so we did a big prep today. And if you haven't checked that video out, it's down in my log there. But today we're going to talk about the best cattle watering system. And this is the pride of the farm. I believe it is a 20-gallon capacity in here, and it has 2 lids. And so the lid, I'm finding, is the major factor. Now, this is an electric free, no electricity whatsoever. Water line ran under the ground, comes up into this unit. You might be able to hear it hissing here as the cow's drinking there. And so you can see I have one lid off. There is a way to train these, and you have to train the cattle. They're used to drinking out of big tubs throughout the year as we rotationally graze, but you can see the lid, and so they have to learn to lift that lid up and get their nose in. What I have done is I take one lid off and I leave one lid on. The other thing you can do is take that lid and flip it upside down. It will make the lid stay 4 to 5 inches open, and it allows them to kind of smell the water, hear the water, and get their nose under it. Once 2 or 3 figure it out, the rest of the herd is in here getting at it. But I like leaving this lid off because it helps me to look at it. I have not ever had this thing freeze. I have not seen it freeze at -8 with the lid off. So we're going to talk about capacity here in a second, but 2 openings. This is good for pigs or cattle, this specific model. 20 gallons, and we have 32 head, including calves and everything, currently on it today. Once again, if you did not hear that name, if I went a little quick, it is in the description, but this is the pride of the farm, okay? So I have checked these out. They can be shipped anywhere in the continental United States, I know 100% sure. If you're in another country, which we've had a lot of comments from everywhere, really, it's crazy, all around the world, people watching our videos. I'm not sure on you guys, so you're gonna have to look around your area. But pride of the farm, this has been my only one that I've ever had, and I've got personal experience with about 4 different models of these. And then I have friends that have given me another 4 or 5 different models over the years, right, that we've tried. So 8 total in my pocket. I've seen a lot at farm shows. This is the one I will never buy a different style unit ever again. This is the best one. Let's talk about what it has different than the others. So behind me here, you'll see another style that we have throughout our farm, and this is one that I have taken out. This is a Ritchie, so standard Ritchie, if you see them on videos, yellow, red lids. These are about 7 years old. We have these throughout the farm. These are nice throughout the spring. The water is open, so the water comes up through the center, comes into a reservoir in here with your float valve so the cows can't touch it. And then the water is open here. So bringing new calves in is easy to train. The water's open, they drink it. They have these plugs that you put in these holes, and that's what keeps the water in. And you can shut one side off or another by moving the plug up. It's the same size hole throughout. And so they're nice waterers, but they freeze. These are meant to have electricity ran to them, which is problem number 1. Now you have to trench in water, and then some people will put that electric in the same trench. I do not recommend that. But you also have to get electricity to this. There was at one point in time electric on this farm to these water heaters. It lasted about 3 years, that's it. Then underneath the ground, you have electric wires in conduit, hopefully, but these guys didn't. They ran underground wire, and the connections have corroded, causing shorts. The outlets that they put in that these plug into corroded, completely just crumbled. As I turned the power off and went out and started messing with them, trying to get them to work, they don't work, okay? They're a pain in the butt. There is some pros and cons to this versus the Pride of the Farm. The Pride of the Farm has this big lid on top, and we'll go over and look at it here again in a second. And that's how you access the compartments. But on this, it has a nice side panel. I do like that about the Ritchies, so that you can get into the valve, if you have a valve underneath of it, to shut it off. Whereas with the Pride of the Farm, you have to take the lid off and then go down through a hole to shut it off with a valve. I have a better system as we talk about installing them here in a little bit. I'll tell you how I would do that differently. But the problem is, even with a heating element, even with electricity, these still freeze in really cold weather. They'll get a skim of ice over top of that tank, and the water, because they're not drinking during the night, won't get drank, and it will freeze over. And then every morning, you have to come and bust that little square. And once you pop the little square, the water flows in, it's warm, it's fine, it doesn't freeze. Now, I've seen these not freeze with electricity down to 0, you know, a little bit below. But when we had -8, these things, even with electricity, the ones that still worked, froze up. Why would I pay for an automatic water system, pay all that money, 600 bucks or whatever it is, and still have to come bust ice off of it every morning? That is not why I'm buying one of these systems. So I do not like the Ritchie. That is the other one here I have to show you today. But that is one of the major differences with this Pride of the Farm. No electricity. They have lids that blocks wind. They have never frozen up. The water is, the floats and all those things are protected so they don't get adjusted. When the cows stick their nose down in that water and it bounces, it can mess up those floats over time. The float systems in these are so much tighter. I've never had to adjust a float once I got it adjusted day one. I was adjusting them about once every 2 to 3 weeks with those Ritchies. It just seems like I could never get them tight enough to not have to keep adjusting them. I put different bolts in them. I did all kinds of different things, finally made them better with my personal alterations, and they would last. But every 2 or 3 months now, I still have to go around, shut them off, drain them, make some adjustments, check them, do all that kind of stuff. And so they're kind of a pain in the butt, and it's frustrating for me as a customer when you spend that much money and they don't work right. All right, so first off, we're gonna talk about installation here in a second, but I wanna talk about the prep for installation, okay? So you're gonna have a feed area like this. With this style of a unit, you could put it in a fence line and split the fences, have it in a, you know, a pasture paddock, and then in a feed area or in a barn, whatever you would like to do. So you gotta prep, and how do you get the water line to there? So my first piece of advice when installing is to get the water line deep. So frost area here is about 32 to 34 inches is standard. These things are 4.5 feet deep. I don't ever want to see that water line again. I got it super deep. It's a 1-inch line, and then we convert it down to a 3/4 at the tank. You don't need that, it's just the line that I had. But get that thing deep, and then most people will use a small 8 to 12-inch culvert going vertical, and they'll run that line up through that and then cover it, that whole hole, everywhere that you dug, with gravel, okay? Get a good packing crusher run. We call them 304s here, just a meshed gravel that has powder in it that packs in tight. Get it around that culvert and pack it in tight. But before you get this water line ran, I want to show you what I would do to change the valve system. This is not the perfect setup because I didn't do this. This is where the water lines were when I bought this farm. You know, half of this barn was here when I bought this farm. We've added on to it and done a lot of repairs, but we have a water well, okay? So some people call them a sewer well, whatever. Basically, there's a water line that comes in to this green well, okay? And then it goes back out. My valve to turn it on or off is down in that well, and it's an insulated well. So we'll put the well in, have an insulated lid that goes on top of it. It never freezes. That line is 4 feet deep down in there. And I make sure that I put the well, dig the hole about 8 inches to a foot deeper than the water line. And then I fill that with a pebble gravel so that water can leach out. And I'll put a geotech fabric, some kind of a fabric, whether it's garden fabric in a few different layers, or you get the fabric that goes underneath gravel lines. I put that down in there and then put the pebbles on top of it so no moles or anything comes in. And it allows that thing to never have water in it. The line is up above the gravel, and then it has an insulated lid. And if it gets super cold in your area, you can put a piece of like wall insulation on top of that water line. But what that allows me to do is to shut this automatic water off. I don't have to take the lid off and reach my hand down in the water and shut the valve off and any of that. I can simply lift that lid up, take my little T-handle, shut the valve off, and now the water is not shut off to that. I can just push the plug in and drain it, and I don't have to get my hands all wet. And so that's something I would recommend you do. Figure out with your water line as you're going into wherever you're going and however it would go, where can you put a well with a shutoff valve so you can shut that section off, and maybe you tee from there and then you have a valve, however it would work, so that you can shut this off to work on it at any point in time without getting your hand, without getting your hand down in it. It's just something I've learned and something I try to do. Do not recommend you have these wells where cattle can step on them. So somewhere on, the property side of the fence where they don't get it, or put it right on a fence. They're less likely to step on these wells, and you can have a shutoff system to it. That's how the kind of the pre-steps of installing these. So once you've got your water line in, you've got a culvert going vertical that you'll cut off at the ground level, you got gravel packed around it, and all you've got really is a water line coming up. You want to wait a while. And so this might be hard because you need to get it done, but I will tell you from experience, I have ran over lines where I put them in, where I trenched them in with our backhoe, and then later, 6 months later, after cows have walked on it and the time has come, it gravity sinks down in. And then I've had my water being off. In fact, it happened with a new one that I put in here. And so year one, it was fine. That first winter we got through it, but as the winter went on, it started tilting. And so I had to go in and lower my ball valve down. One side was really shallow, the other side, was full. And so cows could only drink out of one side. Then spring comes, and I had to take it all back apart, put more gravel in, pack it down in, re-level it. So my advice is to get that culvert in, that pipe in, out, get everything level, and drive over it as much as you can. And even if you only give it a month to settle with some rains, letting that line, the area where you put that line back in, settle, and then recoating it with gravel is a great thing. We came back in the shop so I can kind of talk to you about some insulation tips and tricks and things that I've done. So you've got a water line that comes up. You can use a standard barb fitting where you put a barb fitting down in the water line, you use 2 hose clamps alternating directions, and get to a threaded end to connect per the directions of these waterers, right? I like these CTS valves, okay? And so this is one that I've used in the past, but basically this metal sleeve goes down in your water line, and then this end goes down over the water line and over this sleeve, and then these things crank together and crimp against that water line. And then you tighten this with a socket against your water line again. These are the ones that I use when I install a new home. These are the ones that I've started to use in any major point that I really never want to do again. If I'm going underneath the ground and I'm going to bury it, this is the only thing I trust. So I don't trust barb fittings anymore. I've dug too many of them up over the years, and I just don't choose to do them. Now, if something is open, there are some plastic versions of this that Greg Judy and some other guys use from Philmac, and they will look similar to this, okay? And you can buy these at powerflexfence.com, at least that's where I get them. I'm sure you can buy them at many other places. These are from Philmac. They are a compression fitting. The key with these things, the things that I see people screw up when they're doing this, is one, they crank down too tight. They get too overzealous and too muscular and just bust these things, especially when it's cold. The other thing is they don't use the right type of water line underground. They go to Lowe's or Home Depot and just pick up a standard water line and think it's fine. Plastics are different. They're different components. You have to have HDPE, okay? So high density polyethylene. It's a style of a pipe that's extruded out, and that works best. It doesn't flex as much, and so these work. There is no inner sleeve for these, okay? They just simply go over. You can kind of see this green thing that's down in there. That has a grip that grips onto the line. I like these, okay? Especially, I use these when I can get down into the well and change it out if I need to. And you could technically get underneath these waters to do it. But if I'm gonna bury it, I use that CTS brass version. You just have to decide what you want. But either way, you need to get somehow from your water line to a female thread, which we'll have here. This is a 3/4 inch female thread. And then we'll get into the directions of the actual water system. All right, so excuse my crude engineering 30-second drawing here, but let's think about this. This is the ground level, obviously, is right here. This is your culvert. So most people use an 8 to a 12-inch culvert, and it's buried down in the ground, and then this is your black water line, okay? So we're coming up through our water line from our ground. Hopefully we installed a valve somewhere back there to shut this off. And this is whatever connector we want, whether we're going to use a Filmac or a brass CTS. From there up will come with the supplies for this water. When you order the Pride of the Farm water, you will get from this connector up all the rest of this, okay? They have a Schedule 40 PVC that goes up into the tank. This squiggly line is this pipe insulation that they will sell you. Now, it would be preferred to get this as low down in the ground as you can and get this insulation over it. The other thing, before you start installing this and before you bury everything, another good thing to do would be go ahead and put this connector on and put that, it looks like a pool noodle insulation on this water line. So you can go ahead and put that all on your own water line as well. You can buy it at Lowe's or Home Depot or any hardware store typically. Slice it down the middle. If you have to go to Dollar General and buy a pool noodle, it will work. And then black tape around it every 6 inches to a foot. The more insulation you get around this, the colder your waters will handle. Now there is some connectors up in here as you connect into the tank from the PVC. So you'll connect this PVC up in, and the tank actually slides over the PVC, and then there's a slide over connector that will actually lock the water from going back around this. And so it has some rubber rings and a gasket. They have all that, but you'll insulate everything and then slide this whole blue unit that you saw outside over it, and then it will auto be connected to that system, the valve system in there, with your float that lets the water come in. This here, I did not put a gasket. There is a rubber gasket that comes with it, but I did not like glue this down or silicone that. I have seen people do that. I do not recommend that you do that. I do not recommend that you have a silicone and you glue this thing down. A simple stud through the concrete that you pour or that you buy. So you can buy a concrete, let me draw this here. You can buy a concrete ring that goes around that culvert at most hardware stores, or you can find them at some farm stores, or you can simply pour it yourself. Lay out a 4x4 square, a 2x4s, even bag mix it, and pour your concrete right up against that culvert. And then you will put some anchors down in at each point, okay? I prefer the anchors where I drill the hole and then I drive the anchor in with a hammer, and then as I screw tight with my lock nuts, it starts to pull up on the threads and those things expand and lock itself in. I like those because I can tap them back down later and wiggle them and pull them out sometimes, or cut them off even and not have anything sticking up. But on that, there are going to be you want 4 male threaded anchors sticking up, and then they will send you the hardware to put those lock nuts and nuts down on them, and there's a big washer, and those things actually screw down to the concrete. The cattle can't break it, they can't knock it off, and it's very secure. So with that being said, kind of a little tool list, you're gonna need all of whatever connection plumbing stuff. So a plumbing pipe cutter. You can use a Sawzall. I prefer an actual beveled knife that cuts PVC pipe. So you're going to need that. You're going to need glue. You're going to need primer for your PVC connections. You'll need a utility knife of some sort to cut and adjust your insulation. You're going to need to roll a black tape. And then, of course, you're going to need the concrete and all the concrete tools to finish that concrete pad. You can do that before or after you get all this stuff set in place. But you're going to need to obviously have that cured before you start to anchor in this automatic waterer. When it comes time to put your automatic water in, you're going to need the studded anchors for concrete, the concrete anchors. There are two types. You can have a screw-in type where you add a female in and then you screw a bolt down into it, or you can have the male in that sticks up and then it's a compression fitting. I guess you also could use a Tapcon screw, but I would not recommend any of those. I only recommend the male threads that stick up and then you put a nut and washer on it. That's what I prefer. I have found, because Tapcons break over time and they can, as it gets pressure with cattle hitting on it, it can break the head off and then you're in a mess where you have to kind of rotate and put all four in. So Tapcons are not made to hold this down with rough. They're meant for wall anchoring. The females, which would technically be meant for this job, but I find with cattle and poo and water and ice, the female ends that you drive down in and add a female socket and then you would put a bolt down through it, they get clogged up, okay? So if you're gonna be out there washing them out and sucking water out of them with a shop vac to get them clean later and over years, that's why I prefer the male style. The male that you drive the threaded rod down in and then they poke up. You're gonna have to look into that. And then obviously with this, you're gonna need some kind of a concrete hammer drill with a concrete bit. If you don't have that, do not spend the $100 to buy all that stuff. Go rent it, okay? If you're only gonna use it for this job, go rent it. But I have found you could buy a pretty cheap hammer drill at Harbor Freight, buy your bit. I would say if you have a farm over time, you have enough concrete, you're gonna get use out of that hammer drill. It is also a good post drill. You can turn the hammer part off and make a regular drill. You can use to mix paint or concrete or whatever you wanna do. So that's how you do that. As we're talking about concrete, I said you can mix it yourself. You can shovel mix concrete, but what I have found is I have a big mixer and it's actually down here on the wall. We'll walk down here and look at this one. And so I like this mixer here, okay? So I use this and I use 5-gallon buckets and I mix a half a bag at a time. I do not have a concrete mixer. You can rent a concrete mixer, you can mix it in buckets, whatever you like, just mix your concrete to get your pad. But those are kind of some of the tools that you will need over time to install this. Out of all of this installation of this water, if you only took one piece away from me, it would be that make sure your ground is settled and packed well before you pour this concrete pad or buy this concrete ring. If it settles over time and it becomes uneven because you dug too big of a hole, and that's the biggest thing, as you're digging with your backhoe, if you get a really big open hole, you need to fill it with a packing, either get a concrete truck and fill it with concrete or pack a stone in there really tight, okay? That is the biggest mistake I have seen people make, is they'll install them and then mud and ice and water and cows over years. Sometimes, like me, it only took 6 months and that thing got off. If it gets off and you don't catch it, it will run over and your water will run for until the next time you're out there, days perhaps. And you'll have a huge water bill or you'll drain whatever tank you're running to. And so make sure it is packed in before you get the concrete pad there. That is the best advice I can give you to make this done right. Do it once and never have to touch it again. This thing should last 20 to 30 years at minimum. Now, like I said, there's a lot of people that are watching from many different remote areas, Nigeria even. I had a guy email me, and so if you're watching, thanks for watching. People are way out there. What if you can't find this brand? Okay, so there's some key things. One, you need to have an electric-free, frost-free water. Okay, so don't buy one of these if you're looking at other brands that requires electricity. That's my opinion. I do not like the ones that have the ball, where they push the ball down and then they are able to drink out of it. What I have found is that if that ball gets ice on it and the cows can't push it down, they now can't get into the water. They don't freeze up. Those ones don't freeze, but that ball gets stuck. and then the cow can't push it down, and you have to go out and just smack it with a hammer, knock the ball down, and then the cows drink, and then the water gets warmer, and they're fine. I have seen problems with those. So I don't like the ones with the balls. I know friends that have them and they like them, but they still say, oh yeah, a couple times a year I have to go out there and hit it with a hammer. That annoys me. So I would stay away from those. I like this lid design. Obviously, if you could only buy one, I'd buy the Pride of the Farm. But a locked down insulated lid that has a flopping lid, these have seemed to be the design that works better in my opinion. Also, one that has a bigger, heavier, wider frame. So these Richies are a little skinnier and they're a little taller, which is okay, but skinnier, you have this more leverage for the cow with his head, or the pig even that likes to root around it. So these lower, wider framed sizes, I prefer that style, okay? They should have good anchor points. They should be flat on the bottom, so more contact with the concrete. And they should be heavy, okay? When you pick these up, that thing weighs about 100 pounds when it doesn't have water in it. It should be heavily insulated, thick spray foam in there, and you should be able to see the rating. Get at least 20 degrees lower on your rating than you think you need. So those are the advices. If you can't find this brand, kind of look for those types of things. If air gets to the water, it will freeze it, even if you have some way to insulate it or have electricity to it, whatever it would be. You're going to have to fight with it and watch it, and it can be annoying. There are many other different options for keeping water to freeze, but today we're talking specifically about an automatic water. This is not a year one purchased. If you're starting farming, I didn't have this year one. In fact, I didn't have it until year 8. Okay, so it took me several years to say, you know what, it's time. It's time to get one of these, and it's time to put them in. Now, when we changed farms, when we bought a bigger farm and came here, water lines were in, and so I knew I wanted this, so I started off right, and I went and got them in place because it makes life easier for me. But this is not the cheapest thing, and so I really only use these during the winter, except the ones that were out there before. I would not install those on my farm if I was starting from scratch. I would only install them where I needed water to not freeze during winter grazing. And so I'm going to push that out there. There's many other ways to keep your water to not freeze. Okay, you can do many other things. There's a whole video that's down in the description. You can check it out. But today, if you're saying, oh, I use this or a tire water or do this, a solar heater, a bubbler, yes, there's many other things you can use. But as today's video is about an automatic water, if that's the route you want to go, I hope this helped you as we talk about the different decisions and the different styles to look for and how to install them, different things to think about when you're installing them. Well, there you have it. I hope this video helped. I hope you were able to see how to install them. I hope you had a good opinion of this brand. I trust it. I am not paid. This is not a sponsored video. They didn't pay me. I paid full price for those things. Actually, I think I got a discount for buying 2 at the same time, but I didn't get anything because I have a YouTube channel where I'm telling you that. So just understand, this is my clear, unadulterated advice and through my years of experience, and I'm just hoping that it can help you so that you don't make some mistakes and buy the ones that don't really work as well because they are a lot of money. Appreciate everybody watching the channel. If this video helped, please hit that like button. It really does help our channel. Thanks everybody for the comments, and continue to follow along with our channel. We so much appreciate everybody watching. Our channel hit 5,000 subscribers, so thank you subscribers for continuing to stay with us and continuing to help us grow. Let's keep it going. And I hope you guys, this is now January of 25, so I hope this video as it cycles through continues to remain relevant. I will take it down. If I find something better, I'll take this video down and make a new video. But as of today, this is the best thing I found on the market. Appreciate you watching, and I hope things work out for you.